Imagine working your entire life toward one moment, only to find out it never existed. Not the opportunity, not the support, not even the future you were promised. Now imagine hearing this from the two people who were supposed to believe in you the most. Your parents. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Let me ask you something. What would you do if you opened your college acceptance letter? The one you spent years fighting for, and your parents calmly told you they had already spent your entire college fund? And then left. That's exactly what happened to Lena Carter. Lena was 18 years old, living in Dayton, Ohio, the kind of student teachers love to talk about. Quiet, disciplined. The girl who stayed after class to ask questions. The girl who tutored other students for free. For 4 years, she built her future piece by piece. Straight A's. Academic competitions. Late night studying while her friends scrolled through their phones. And through it all, there was one promise her parents repeated like a safety net. Don't worry about college. We've been saving for it since you were born. So when the acceptance letter from Ohio State University arrived, Lena thought everything was finally lining up. It was a Tuesday afternoon in April. The envelope was thick. Her hands shook as she opened it. Congratulations. She had made it. Years of effort condensed into one word. She was in. She ran downstairs, heart pounding, ready to celebrate. But instead of excitement, her mother Diane was standing in the kitchen with a strange expression. Her father, Mark, sat at the table with his arms crossed. "Lena, sit down," her mom said. Something felt wrong immediately. The air in the room was heavy. Her mother folded her hands together like she was delivering bad news. "There's something we need to tell you." Lena looked between them. "What is it?" Her mom exhaled slowly. "There's no college fund." At first, Lena thought she misunderstood. "No? What do you mean?" Her father leaned back in his chair and shrugged. "We used it. Just like that." 18 years of promises gone in one sentence. Lena stood there trying to process what she had just heard. But then her father said something that hurt even more than the truth. He laughed. A short, dismissive laugh. "You wouldn't have made it anyway." And in that moment, something inside Lena Carter changed forever. Because within the next hour, she would pack a bag, walk out of that house, and step into a future none of them expected. But what happened during the next 5 years would lead to a phone call that no one, especially her parents, ever saw coming. And that call would start with something Lena never imagined hearing from her mother. Crying. Most people think betrayal feels dramatic. A screaming match. A slammed door. Tears. But sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just one sentence that follows you out the door like a shadow. "You wouldn't have made it anyway." Those words echoed in Lena Carter's head as she walked down her street that night with a single backpack and a small duffel bag. 18 years old. $312 in her bank account. And nowhere to go. Have you ever noticed how the world feels different when you realize you're completely on your own? The streetlights seemed brighter. The silence louder. Every passing car suddenly felt like it belonged to someone who had a place to be. Lena kept walking. 1 block. 2 blocks. 3. At first, she thought maybe she'd just clear her head and come back. But with every step, something became clearer. She wasn't going back. Because the moment her father laughed, the house she grew up in stopped feeling like home. After nearly an hour of walking, Lena checked the time on her phone. 11:42 p.m. Most places were closed, but across the street she spotted something glowing in the dark. A small 24-hour diner called Riverside Grill. The neon sign buzzed faintly in the night air. Inside, only 3 tables were occupied. A truck driver sipping coffee, a couple quietly sharing fries, and behind the counter stood a young guy wiping down plates. His name tag read Miguel. Lena slid into a booth and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, coffee. When Miguel came back with the mug, he glanced at the suitcase sitting beside her booth. "You traveling?" he asked casually. Lena hesitated. Then she shrugged. "Something like that." Miguel studied her for a moment. "You don't look like someone on vacation." There was something about the way he said it. Not judgmental, just observant. And for the first time that night, Lena told someone the truth. About the college acceptance. About the missing fund. About the sentence her father laughed while saying. Miguel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned against the counter for a second, thinking. Then he asked a question Lena didn't expect. "You looking for work?" Lena blinked. "What?" Miguel pointed toward the kitchen. "Our dishwasher quit yesterday." It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't part of any dream she ever had. But at that moment, it meant something bigger. A start. That same night, Lena tied on an apron and stepped into the diner kitchen for her first shift. Hot water. Stacks of greasy plates. The smell of burnt coffee and fryer oil filling the air. And while she scrubbed dishes at midnight, one thought kept repeating in her mind. Her father believed she would fail. So now she had two choices. Prove him right, or spend the rest of her life proving him wrong. But what Lena didn't realize yet was that a simple job at a late-night diner was about to open a door she never saw coming. Because a few weeks later, Miguel would hand her something small. Just a single piece of paper. A flyer most people would have thrown away. But that piece of paper would lead Lena toward an opportunity that would quietly change the entire direction of her life. And it started with a scholarship she almost didn't apply for. Most people think success begins with one big opportunity. A lucky break. A life-changing yes. But for Lena Carter, the moment that changed everything actually began with a rejection email. 2 months after she started working at Riverside Grill, life had settled into a brutal routine. Wake up at 6 a.m. Work a morning shift at a grocery store stocking shelves. Grab 2 hours of sleep. Then head back to the diner for the night shift. Repeat. Day after day. Lena rarely talked about her college acceptance anymore. The letter stayed folded inside her backpack like a reminder of a life that had slipped away. But one night during a slow shift, Miguel walked over and placed a small flyer on the counter beside her. "You ever thought about community college?" he asked. Lena wiped her hands on a towel and glanced at the paper. It advertised a scholarship for working students at Dayton Community College. She laughed softly. "Miguel, I can barely afford rent." But Miguel shrugged. "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?" The truth was, Lena almost threw the flyer away. Because applying meant admitting she still believed in something bigger. Still believed she could succeed. Still believed her father might be wrong. But later that night, sitting in her tiny rented room above a retired teacher's garage, Lena opened her laptop and filled out the application. Grades, work history, financial situation, then the final section, an essay question. Describe the biggest obstacle you have faced and how it shaped you. Lena stared at the screen for a long time. Then she wrote about the night her parents told her the college fund was gone. She wrote about the laugh. The sentence she couldn't forget. "You wouldn't have made it anyway." 3 weeks later, an email arrived at 2:14 in the morning while she was on break at the diner. Her heart pounded as she opened it. But the first line crushed her hope. "Thank you for applying." She didn't win. The scholarship was going to someone else. Lena exhaled slowly, already preparing to close the message. Then she noticed something unusual at the bottom. A personal note. Not from the scholarship office, but from one of the judges, Dr. Hannah Brooks, a professor at a nearby university. The message read, "You didn't receive the scholarship, but your essay stood out to me. If you are serious about continuing your education, please contact me." Lena read the line 3 times. Why would a professor care about her? She was a dishwasher working double shifts just to survive. But curiosity got the better of her. 2 days later, Lena met Dr. Brooks at a small coffee shop near campus. The professor listened carefully as Lena explained everything. The college fund, leaving home, working 2 jobs, and the words her father said that night. When Lena finished, she expected sympathy. Instead, Dr. Brooks leaned forward and asked one simple question. "What do you want to prove?" Lena didn't hesitate. That they were wrong. Dr. Brooks smiled slightly. "Good," she said. Anger can be powerful fuel. Over the next year, the professor helped Lena build a path forward. community college classes, work-study programs, scholarships. It would be exhausting, but it was possible. And Lena attacked it with relentless determination. Classes during the day, diner shifts at night, for hours of sleep, 2 years of sacrifice. Until finally, something unbelievable happened. At 21 years old, Lena Carter transferred into Ohio State University, the same school she thought she lost forever. But the biggest twist in her story hadn't happened yet, because during her final year, one simple class project would accidentally turn into something far bigger than a degree. Something that would make her name appear in places her parents would eventually see. And 5 years after the night she walked out of their house, her phone would ring with a call she never expected. 5 years is a long time. Long enough for anger to cool. Long enough for life to completely change. But sometimes, the past waits quietly for the exact moment you stop thinking about it. And then it calls you. For Lena Carter, that moment happened on a Thursday afternoon. She was sitting in a glass-walled office overlooking downtown Columbus. Laptops open, whiteboards filled with diagrams. Her small team arguing about updates to the newest version of their scheduling app. Just 3 years earlier, the idea had started as a college project. A simple tool designed to help restaurants manage staff shifts more efficiently. Lena knew the chaos of restaurant schedules better than anyone after years at the diner. Missed shifts, confusing spreadsheets, managers calling employees at midnight. So she built something better. What started as a class assignment quickly caught attention. First from her professor, then from a local startup mentor, and eventually from investors. Now, at 23, Lena was the founder of a growing tech company whose software was being used by thousands of restaurants across the country. A tech blog had just published an article that morning. Former waitress builds scheduling app used by 40,000 restaurants. Investors were valuing the company at nearly $12 million. Lena was still processing how fast everything had happened. Then her phone buzzed on the desk. An unknown number. Normally, she would ignore it, but something made her pick it up. Hello. At first, there was only silence. Then she heard something unexpected. Crying. Soft, shaky breathing on the other end of the line. And then a voice she hadn't heard in 5 years. Lena. Her chest tightened instantly. Her mother, Diane Carter. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 5 years of silence hanging in the air between them. Then her mother finally said the words, We need your help." Lena leaned back in her chair, stunned. Her parents had never called. Not once. Not after she left. Not when she enrolled in school. Not when she graduated. Nothing. And now suddenly, they needed help? What happened? Lena asked carefully. Her mother hesitated. Then the truth began spilling out. Her father's construction business had collapsed the previous year. Several contracts fell through. Debt piled up. Loans they couldn't repay. The bank was preparing foreclosure papers for the house. Collectors were calling every day. They were drowning. And then Diane said something that made Lena's stomach twist. "We heard about your company." Of course they had. The article. Friends probably shared it. Maybe someone from their town saw it online. Suddenly the daughter they laughed at 5 years ago looked very different. "We just need a little help," her mother whispered. Then another voice came onto the line. Her father, Mark Carter. For 5 years, Lena had imagined what it would feel like to hear his voice again. Anger, bitterness, maybe satisfaction. But what he said next surprised her. "I was wrong." 3 words Lena never expected to hear from him. Silence stretched across the call. Because now the moment had arrived that Lena once dreamed about during endless nights washing dishes. The moment where everything had flipped. The girl who left with nothing now had everything her parents suddenly needed. But what Lena said next would decide whether this phone call became revenge or something completely different. And her answer would surprise even her. For a few seconds after her father said, "I was wrong," Lena didn't speak. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because she had imagined this moment hundreds of times during the hardest years of her life. During nights scrubbing dishes at the diner. During mornings when she was so tired in class, she could barely keep her eyes open. During moments when quitting would have been so much easier. In every one of those imagined conversations, her parents apologized. And in every version, Lena had the perfect speech ready. But now that the moment had actually arrived, the speech was gone. Instead, there was just silence. On one side of the phone was the girl who had walked out of her house with a suitcase and $300. On the other side was the founder of a company worth millions. Two completely different lives, separated by 5 years. Her mother's voice broke the silence. "We're about to lose the house, Lena. The same house where she grew up. The same kitchen table where her father laughed and told her she would never succeed." But Lena realized something in that moment that surprised even her. The anger she carried for years wasn't as strong anymore. Time had changed it. Struggle had reshaped it. Success had quieted it. So instead of arguing, Lena asked a question. "Why did you spend the college fund?" The line went silent again. Finally, her father answered. His voice sounded older than she remembered. "My business was already failing back then," he admitted. Projects were falling through. Loans were piling up. They used the money trying to keep the company alive. But it didn't work. And instead of telling Lena the truth, they convinced themselves she didn't need the money anyway. Because admitting the real reason would have meant admitting they had failed. Lena leaned back in her chair, staring out at the city skyline through her office window. It was strange hearing the full truth after all these years. All the pain from that night had come from fear and pride, not cruelty. So Lena made a decision. Not out of revenge, not out of obligation, but out of clarity. "I'll help," she said. Her mother gasped softly, but Lena continued before they could say anything else. "I'll cover the overdue mortgage once. Enough to stop the foreclosure." Relief flooded the phone line instantly. But then Lena added something her father probably didn't expect. "This isn't because you believed in me." A pause. "It's because I believed in myself." Those words hung in the air for a long moment. Because the truth was simple. 5 years earlier, her parents had taken away the safety net she thought she had. And somehow, that forced her to build her own. The road back wasn't easy. Their relationship didn't magically fix overnight. Trust takes time, sometimes years. But the conversation that day became the first honest one they'd had in a long time. And maybe that mattered more than anything else. Because here's the strange thing about doubt. Sometimes the people who underestimate you end up giving you the exact motivation you needed to succeed. Lena Carter was told she wouldn't make it. She was told her dreams didn't matter. She was told she would fail. 5 years later, the same people were calling her for help. Not because she got lucky, but because she refused to believe the story someone else wrote about her future. So if you've ever had someone tell you that you won't succeed, remember this story. Sometimes the people who doubt you are just writing the opening chapter. And the rest of the story? That part is still yours to prove.